everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Not the Worsted Knitting podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, we just have a couple of works in progress, a half-finished object, nothing crazy different than what we were doing before. Please excuse Tuna, who is scratching on our little scratching post. He chose now, of all times, to do that. We have this little like cardboard scratching thing, and normally they don't mess with it when I'm filming, but he decided that now was the time. Okay, anyway, I think he's wrapped that up, so moving on. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and chat a little bit about what I'm wearing. So I am wearing the Primavera Sweater, and this is a pattern by Melanie Reinert. This is a top-down raglan sweater. I am holding 2 strands of Fyberspates Cumulus, my most favorite of Surreys, and this is in the colorway Thistle. I believe her pattern calls for holding 3 strands of mohair together, but I was able to achieve the same gauge with 2 strands of Surrey because Surrey is typically a little bit thicker than mohair, and I can't really wear mohair, and Surrey is my jam anyway. I love this sweater. I don't wear it a ton just because it gets quite fuzzy and matted. That is like the one thing I would warn you about if you are doing, it's all over lace work, which is really beautiful. And on screen, it still looks pretty great, but it definitely kind of mats down a little bit, and that's just the nature of the Surrey. It's to be expected, but I basically try not to wear this one too much because I don't want to necessarily damage it, just because I do feel like this is kind of one of those precious ones when I'm feeling maybe a little bit fancier or like I want to dress a little more romantic. I don't know. I do love this sweater. I love the sleeves. I am pretty sure there are no decreases on the sleeves until the cuff, and then you do a rapid decrease, which gives you this really beautiful balloon sleeve and then these really nice tight cuffs. So it just kind of adds to that drama and that romance. And I do think it helped that I picked this kind of pale lavender color. So I really love this sweater. It's really cozy, but also very just sweet and pretty. So that is what I chose to wear today on yet another gray day here in Western Washington. We started to get some rain again, which is actually kind of nice. It's been weird because we haven't had rain in feels like a month. It was like dry and cold, and then we got snow on and off, but we're kind of back to the rain, which is a welcome relief. So it feels like proper winter again. So in terms of what I've got to chat about today, I will start by showing you my half-finished object, I guess we will call it. This is progress that I made from last week. And so this is Thomas's version of the Tally Alley socks. Basically, I wanted to knit a larger pair to compare the two. So this pair over here, well, I'm saying pair, but it's just a single sock. This sock over here was the size I knit for myself, which is a size medium, which is 64 stitches. This is for Thomas, and this is the size large, which is 72 stitches. So the medium and extra large use one chart, and the small and large use a slightly different chart, and that was just to accommodate the sizing for the amount of stitches to work the same with the rounds. And I think it achieves the same effect. Like I said last week, if you watch my last week's video, I talk about how I tried 3 different chart ideas to best mimic the pattern, and I felt like this one worked the best. And so you can see it works up, even though this is a larger sock, it worked up to where his size and my size use the same amount of colors, which I also thought was really fun because obviously if we compare here, this is a much bigger sock, but the chart difference just kind of allows you to scale up in a way to where I think it looks pretty much the same, and it gives you the same all over woven effect. If you are just tuning in, the inspiration for this design came from the idea of cross-hatching and weaving and those sorts of horizontal and vertical lines to create the idea of shading. And so that's really what I was going for, was this sort of woven looking cross-hatching effect. And so I feel like this really does the job well. So I'm really happy to have this guy done. So now I've got 3 of these. So this one is Hazel Knits Artisan Sock in the color in the navy, and then the contrast color is Salty Blonde Fibers 2-ply sock in the color Burn Book. This has a shadow wrap heel. And then these guys both use the same yarns, which is the main color again is Hazel Knits Artisan Sock in the color Vivian. And then all the colors throughout are KnitPicks Stroll. And this uses an afterthought heel. And both of these use an afterthought heel. Thomas actually prefers an afterthought heel, and I actually really like doing an afterthought heel for him because that way if I ever need to make a repair, it's very easy and I can just pull out the whole heel and knit a new one. So we are in pretty much the last week of testing. Everything's going well. I've had multiple testers knit multiple pairs. I have one tester who's on her 3rd pair now already, which is really fun to see. All the color combinations are really, really fun. I've been so inspired by a lot of the different colors that they've chosen. So I'm really excited for you to see all of that. Keep an eye out because that pattern is going to be coming out very soon. It should be out by the end of the month. So I will have more info on that as it is ready. But yeah, everything is looking great for the test. No issues so far, and everything looks like it's going to be on time, which is really, really exciting. So that is it for the Tally Alley socks. My other dilemma was I was debating what I wanted to knit next. So I really wanted to make a sweater version of the Tally Alley. I loved that motif, and in my mind I kind of envisioned doing a drop shoulder sweater version. I think that'd be really cool. And initially in my mind I was probably thinking that I was going to use Hazel Knits Lively DK. And I was waiting for some colors, and I was debating which colors I wanted to do and debating if I wanted to do another version as well while I waited. What I thought would be fun was to maybe have another version where I would do a little bit more toned down, because what I had in my mind was to do a sweater version of this where you've got a navy color and then like a crazy speckle like Burn Book. And so I was thinking it might be nice to have a version that's just a little bit calmer, tamer. So I was thinking about the gauge that I typically get with Hazel Knits Lively DK, which it's definitely a plumper DK weight yarn. And so when I went to the yarn store, I went to a couple of yarn stores last weekend with my friend, and I was looking at yarns that would maybe be comparable in weight. And I think that Malabrigo Rios is actually pretty similar. It's labeled as a worsted weight, but I would say Rios seems like more of a light worsted. It's not a super thick worsted. And so I was thinking in terms of maintaining the same gauge as Lively DK, this is probably a good one. And on top of that, almost everybody has access to Malabrigo. Rios is a pretty common yarn. It's very easy to find. And I thought it would be a really great option to do a version in Rios. So after my friend and I, we basically pulled down like all the colors. We were working with the yarn shop owner too and picking our favorite color combinations, trying to figure out what would work, because the tricky thing with Malabrigo is some of their colors are a little more tonal than others, and so that means that it could be a little bit stripy, and that's fine for the contrast color, but I didn't really want that for the main color, or if it was going to show up in the main color, I absolutely wanted the contrast color to be like 100% solid. When you're doing color work, you don't really want two crazy yarns together. Like, you don't really want to do a variegated main color and a variegated contrast color, because then it's just going to be noise and it's just going to read as just crazy. Like, your eye's not really going to know what to focus on. But you can use those really wild and crazy variegated colors typically as the contrast color, but sometimes it also works where that is the main color and then you just have a very, very calm contrast color. So you can kind of do one or the other, but I definitely don't recommend doing both. Anyway, so in trying to be more focused on picking colors that I think look good with my skin tone, but also thinking of options that are really pretty but very different from what I'm going to achieve with this color combination, I came up with these. And I actually think these are showing up really nicely in the light, which is good because I've noticed this one in particular, actually both of them have been a little hard to photograph. The colors that I grabbed were, so this dark purple color is called Pearl 10. And then this very pale, like purpley gray color is actually just Pearl. So I don't know if, I'm guessing, I don't know, this is just my theory. I have absolutely nothing to substantiate this theory. My thinking is this is the same colors, like this is the same dye, and maybe this is just dyed over 10 times. I don't know. Maybe, does that sound crazy? Is that possible? Yarn dyers, does that make sense to you, or do I sound like a lunatic? I don't know. Either way, I suspect that maybe these kind of come from the same base color at some point, which is why this is called Pearl and this is called Pearl 10. I don't know. But I just really love the combination. I think it's really nice. I was a little nervous that it might be like too conservative, which for most people this is probably not the case, you know. But I thought nonetheless, I really like the color combination. So if it ends up that I don't like it with the Tally Alley motif, it's not a big deal because I think this in some sort of color work sweater is going to be absolutely stunning. So that night I came home. I also did buy some other yarn, but I'll get to that in a second. I came home and I immediately decided to swatch with these guys. So I was really excited to see if this was going to work out, if I was going to like it with the motif, etc., etc. So I swatched it, and it's like I had amnesia or something, because if we go back, what, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I don't know, whenever I first started working on this Tally Alley pattern, you might recall that I knit up a beanie in like an Aran weight. It was technically listed as heavy worsted, but it's basically an Aran weight yarn. And I started knitting up a Tally Alley beanie in that yarn. And you might remember I said, I don't like the way this looks scaled up this large. Famous last words? I don't know. It's like I completely forgot about that because in my mind I was thinking DK weight, and so I just thought it was going to be fine, even though I know that Lively DK is a bit of a thicker DK. In my mind, I'm still thinking DK is still a little bit, it's like a nice in-between, you know, it's a nice in-between fingering and worsted weight. Well, yeah, I swatched this and it's just, I just don't like it scaled up. I don't like the way it looks at that large gauge. And so I immediately ripped it out because I didn't even want to, like, I didn't want the yarn to get all like crinkly because I knew, like, I knit up the swatch and I was like, this is not it. This is not it. I'm not going to use it. It's not working. I don't like it. I took a couple photos just so I had it. So I will share my photo here. Apologies for the terrible lighting. This is just on my couch at night while we're watching a movie. But yeah, that quickly determined that I don't want to do this sweater as a DK weight. So that on the one hand, it relieves my need to wait on this specially dyed yarn. But on the other hand, it puts me in a predicament where I need to figure out what I want to do. I think realistically, the way it's going to look best on the motif is just to keep it at a similar gauge, which means I probably want to do this in fingering weight. At most sport, but even then, I don't know. I have some sport weight yarn that I can swatch with, so I might do that just to see. But I think it might look better in fingering weight. But either way, I think what this means is I'm not quite ready to tackle this yet because I really want to think about it. I don't have any problem knitting a fingering weight sweater. That is not an issue to me, but it is definitely going to be a bit of a time suck. And so I want to make sure I'm sure before I put in the work, and I want to make sure I pick out exactly the right yarns that are speaking to me and that I feel really excited about. So the sweater version of Tally Alley is on hold, but not to worry. One, I'm actually still very excited about this yarn combo. I think it's really beautiful, and it has me thinking of more organic color work ideas for a sweater. So this is now a new possibility in my list of designs. And then, so moving on, we did go to another yarn store where I was on the hunt for Sueno. That is a yarn by HiKoo. I have used this yarn before in a summer top design that is already done and it's coming out this summer. Testing is almost done with that as well and it's going really well. I've seen some really beautiful versions in some really beautiful colors. It's made me want to knit several more of those in several other colors, which I expect I will probably do a little bit closer to summer. But anyway, it had been my first time working with Sueno and I've really enjoyed it. So I had this brick red color. Okay, I'm gonna back up a little bit because I'm realizing I'm all over the place, but I was on the hunt for Sueno because I wanted to make a short sleeve version of my broken rib sweater, which you can see on the mannequin behind me. This was my finished object from last week. This design is now with my tech editor, which is very exciting. I've sent her a boatload of photos because there's a lot of interesting details that just kind of need to be seen close up. It's quite a detailed pattern, so I expect it's gonna take her a little bit to get through. Hopefully there's not a ton of errors in it. We're gonna see. I triple checked my math on it, so at the very least I don't think there's gonna be any issues with the math. Hopefully those aren't famous last words, but I expect that there might be some recommendations on how to make the instructions maybe a little bit clearer in certain areas. So I'm very curious to see what that's gonna look like when it comes back to me. But hopefully in a couple of weeks, at the very least, I will have round one back. And then from there, I'll have a really good idea of when I can do the test call. Basically, once I get round one back is when I know if I need to wait a little bit longer on calling for the test, or if I know like, okay, this is just like really minor edits from this point, we can do the test call and get this going within a week or so. But either way, I know that the test is coming, and that's very exciting. I'm really excited about this pattern. It's funny because this is definitely one of my more, I don't want to use the word basic. It's not basic, but more of like a staple piece. Let's say classic. I'm going to say classic. Classic is better than basic. But this is definitely one of my more classic designs. And I'm really excited about it just because I think it's extremely versatile, but it's also, I mean, at least I think it's very flattering on me. I love the lines of it. I feel like it's going to go with a lot. And I feel like this is actually the kind of sweater I'm going to feel like I can wear with a lot of different outfits. So that meant that I really wanted to do a short sleeve version that I could wear for the summer. And I thought Sueno would be a really good option, having just used that for another summer top, because it is a light DK weight yarn, much like this one. This is knit up in Skyland, which is a light DK. My gauge was 22 stitches per 4 inches. Part of that also has to do with the broken rib stitch and that nature of things, but when I swatched in the cotton, which I showed you guys last week, I wasn't liking the gauge swatches as much. I swatched it in Sueno, it looked fabulous. So anyway, back to where I was. So I was debating between a white or a plum for doing a summer tee. I decided that I didn't want to do white just because, I don't know, statistically, I often knit white summer tees and I'd like to have some other colors other than white. And then also, it's always a little bit risky with yarn. Sometimes it's a little bit more on the yellow side. And I just don't want a yellowy white yarn against my skin because I do better with more of the stark white. Now, I will mention, we went to the store and I actually noticed that the first store we went to, they had Sueno in a white and a cream. So that was really good to know. And there is a chance that I'll eventually make a white one. You know. So I decided at that point, I knew I didn't want to do the white. What I was debating actually at this point was between plum, and then I also had this brick red that I had swatched with, which I really like, but for some reason, I don't know, in my mind, I see that as more of a full sweater version, not a tee. But I don't know, I was kind of leaning a little bit more in the red still. And at the second store we went to, they had mulberry, which I thought was a perfect in-between of the plum and the brick red. It's this really beautiful mulberry color. It's just like a deep reddish purple, and I really love this color. It is gorgeous. It's showing up really well in the light today too, which is great. So I started my short sleeve version. So I know it doesn't look like much right now, and honestly, it really looks like this on my needles. Let's see, I finished my short rows, and then I just finished the first set of increases, and then I switched to the next section where the increases slowed down a little bit for the compound raglan. But it is moving along quite nicely. I only started this a couple of days ago, actually, and I don't know, this is just one of those that I can't put down. I want to knit it up. I think that's one thing I really enjoy about the broken rib too, is that you get relief rows every other row. So even though you have one where you're doing 2x2 rib, then the next row you're just knitting, with the exception of, you know, obviously the raglan lines, which are twisted rib all the way down, but it's a lot of nice relief rows in between. So you constantly want to just do one more row, one more row, one more row. And I love this color. As you can see, I'm leaning into my jewel tones right now. So I've got the navy. Hopefully that is showing up okay. I think it's a little bit dark, especially back here, so I don't know how well you're able to see any detail on that, but that is in navy. And then this will be in mulberry. I kind of have a feeling this is going to be one of those sweaters that I knit in a lot of different colors, because I can just see myself wearing this in a lot of different ways. So that is my progress on this, and I expect that it's going to continue to grow. But that is basically it. That's all I've been working on. So like I said, it's not a ton that has changed since last time. Again, we are close to release date for my Tally Alley socks. I think actually next week. I need to look at the calendar again. I have a tentative date for pattern release, but I always make that flexible just in case there's any issues with testing. I never want to release a pattern immediately after a test, regardless of whether or not anybody had issues with it. But it's looking really good. So end of February, this pattern is going to be out, and I am dropping socks and but yeah, this is it's pretty much ready to go. So keep an eye on that. If you are interested in that pattern, definitely sign up for my newsletter, where there will be information about that, as well as a special discount code. So you will not want to miss that. Also, definitely sign up for my newsletter if you are interested in testing for this pattern. This is something where, you know, this pattern is not coming out until July. There's going to be an ample amount of testing time, assuming there's not like crazy amounts of edits from my tech editor. But it's going to be a limited test where I'm really only looking for like 2 people per size. So just keep that in mind. It's been really cool. I've had a lot of interest in this pattern. So I'm curious to see what the test call is going to look like. So just know, you know, I am trying to keep the test limited because I really just need 2 people per size. So anyway, definitely sign up for my newsletter if you want to stay up on all of those things. And yeah, that basically concludes all of my knitting for this week. So in terms of my book chat, I just started the Midnight Feast. Well, I said I just started, but really I started it like earlier in the week. So I think I'm about like 40% through the Midnight Feast at this point. And that is a book by Lucy Foley. And it's like a mystery thriller. I'm still trying to figure it out right now, but I am very intrigued. So it's this, I don't know, it takes place in this manor that is kind of surrounded by farmland. Like everything else is kind of rural farmland. All the locals are not wealthy, you know, and then you've got this manor with that this girl, I guess, was raised on, and I guess she like summered there. It wasn't even her main house. She was very well off, and then she ends up turning this manor into essentially like a destination hotel. And she's kind of an influencer, so she's got a level of fame, and she brings a certain type of customer to this manor for their opening weekend. You open in this world of like, you're in this fancy manor that is just really like, it's a level of status to be there, and only people with a level of status are able to come. Like, you have to actually be accepted to even be able to pay to stay at this place. And it's supposed to be just this like really fancy destination, and the locals are very unhappy about it, and there's just not a good relationship between the manor, the staff at the manor, and the locals who are surrounding and live there and kind of have to deal with all of that. Some of their land being taken away, beaches they used to have access to that the manor has taken over. So there's just a lot of tension between the locals and the staff. And so things kind of start to happen, and it's one of those where you flash forward and then you flash back, and you're trying to piece together exactly what's happened. And then there's also another level of, I haven't figured out yet if it's actually supernatural or if it's just like sinister locals being creepy. But there's like a lot of references to the birds and like getting permission from the trees to cut down the trees, and, you know, a lot of respect and fear for nature and the woods. And so I'm really curious to see how that plays out, if it's actually going to be anything supernatural or if it's just like locals playing tricks. But so far I'm really enjoying it. It's nice to bring in a mystery thriller kind of book in the mix. And yeah, so I'm enjoying it so far, and we'll see how it goes. Other than that, that is basically it for me this week. I am just going to keep on working on my tea version of this broken rib sweater. I'll keep you guys updated on social as more progresses with that. And probably do some more work on the Tally Alley socks. I should probably knit some pairs of some of these socks so we can actually wear them. I still actually even need to take photos. I've been avoiding taking photos because the light has been terrible. But I don't know, we might need to bring in some artificial light for these photos, just because I don't think it's gonna get any brighter anytime soon. But yeah, that's it for me this week. If you stayed until now, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram, Ravelry, and Blue Sky. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.